am just sitting here looking at it because it's actually sick. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to teach you through the whole steps of the process of building this utility long skirt right here. It's also a functional skirt. At the midsection there is a zip which you can unzip and make it a shorter skirt if you want to. The last pattern that we released was the Keystone Denims, and if you haven't checked that out, it's probably the most in-depth sewing course to how to make a denim pair of trousers with so many modular different options and things like that. This pattern right here is more of a this is what you will make and this is how you make it. The other pattern, the Keystone Denims, that is more of a huge sewing course of modular different options that you can go down and pathways that you can go down to create a different pair of jeans than somebody else and make something truly unique to yourself. This right here, this is just a tutorial straight from start to finish. So it's going to be vlog format. I'm going to be putting the camera up. I'm going to take you through the process of my sewing patterns. I'm going to show you the fabric. I've got the pattern pre-cut out here, and I'm basically just going to walk you through the whole process in a vlog format. And by the end of the video, we will have a finished product. You can follow along with me. As I always say in these videos, I have a whole website full of different sewing patterns that you can go on there and grab one for $15.95, and you can download it, print it off on your home printer. If you have a industrial machine, great, but if you only have a domestic machine like something like this, that will also work perfectly too. These sewing courses are built all sort of skill levels and ranges, age ranges. Literally anyone can pick up a sewing machine, download these patterns, understand fully how to stick together the pages, understand what a pattern is, how it functions, and be able to follow along on these tutorials. The goal is to obviously make sewing more accessible and ideally try and push away a lot of the old-fashioned ways of teaching and bring a sort of modern feel back to sewing. Thank you for tuning in. My name's Jack. I've been running Rough Cut for about 10 years now of just sewing and making my own clothes, and now I'm passing that knowledge on to you. So without further ado, I'm going to take you through the pattern. I'm going to show you the fabric I've got. I'm going to break down all the little ins and outs, and then we're going to get to construction on my sewing machine over there. But as I said, if you don't have an industrial machine, then you can perfectly follow along with one of them over there, which is a domestic sewing machine, and it can look like any of these. Let's do it. So now we're on the tools, materials and hardware page. And pretty much, I'm not really going to take you through the full process of this. As I said, you can build this pattern on a domestic sewing machine, and then all of the main tools like pins, clips, tailor's chalk, measuring tape, seam ripper, iron, all of these things that I've written down on this page right here, they're all the sort of notions that you should have anyway if you're getting into this sewing project. The few things I will mention, this is going to be on the screen and it will be on the pattern anyway, but regardless, you're going to need some 3mm paracord. You're going to need a cord stopper, an adjustable cord stopper. Looks kind of like this. And then you're also going to need eyelets to input this paracord into your garment itself. And you're also finally going to need a plastic or a very lightweight, long open end zipper. And this is because the midsection obviously zips off of the actual garment itself. And you're going to be building the 2 cargo pockets on the side along with the detachable bag. There'll be a detachable bag just for the closures, the flaps, the attaching the detachable bag, things like that. You're going to need snap fasteners. You can find these in any hardware shop, sewing shop, but all of the specifics and everything that you will need for this pattern will be on the pattern sheet, which is going to be here and on the pattern itself. The next page is the print and assembly guide. So if you have got the tiled sheet pattern, then obviously this is what the pages will look like when you have lined them up correctly, and then you cut out your desired size using the size guide at the top. It basically goes through all the information, so check before starting, making sure you're understanding how they're stuck together, because one little misconception of my patterns is that you don't butt the pages up next to each other. You actually overlap the pages using the bleed lines on each page. I won't explain that anymore, but there is a full tutorial under the need help page on my website. It's a video that takes you through the full process of printing, cutting, sticking, and then cutting out your desired size. Go watch that if you have any queries. The next page is pattern basics. So these are really important. The seam allowance for sewing everything is 1/4, so 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, which is approximately 6mm. If you you don't sew at that seam allowance, things will come out smaller. And also do not add any extra seam allowance when you're cutting out your fabric. So when you've laid your paper pattern pieces on top of your fabric, don't cut out more fabric and add seam allowance. It's already been added. So when you're cutting, don't add seam allowance, and when you're sewing, sew at a 1/4 seam allowance. If you're kind of confused with what that means, there is a gauge on your sewing machine which shows you the 1/4, the 1/2 inch, and the 3/8 of an inch. There is an indication on your sewing machine which shows you exactly what you should be sewing at, pretty much. The next thing is basically just when you're closing your stitches, make sure you're back and forth stitching. That kind of goes without saying. Same with the other ones. Stitch length on these patterns are normally like 2 to 3. And finally, when I say things like right sides together, it pretty much just means you put both the textured sides of the fabric together, and you're pretty much sewing inside out to then turn outside in, if that makes sense. Next, you're going to have measurements. For this pattern, we have extra small all the way up to XL, and you can measure another pre-existing garment. These measurements are garment measurements, not actually body measurements, so you can just measure another skirt and then come back, find the right size that fits you, and then cut out that desired dotted line. And then before we make the pattern, there is one more page. It says Pattern Icon Glossary, and it basically just goes down all of the different terminology and the different symbols you will see in the pattern and what they mean. This just makes the pattern process super easy. You just follow me, follow what I say, and then you'll be able to get to grips with everything. But just one important thing is if you're using fabric like denim or a fabric which has some kind of diagonal weave, then you probably want to cut the fabric on the grain line. Grain line is pretty much the arrow on each of your pattern pieces, and you're just lining it up with the way the weave goes on the fabric so that your garment can stay consistent. Pretty much everything else you'll get used to, and then that is it, and then you have all your tiled pages. I've actually gone ahead, I've stuck the pattern together, all the pages, and I have cut this out myself ready right here. This is all the pattern pieces. I have categorized all of the pattern pieces into different sections. I have pinned all of the actual detachable bag together. I've pinned all of the cargo pockets together. So where it says small pocket side, I've pinned that with the small cargo pocket main, and you know, it just helps with being able to know what I'm doing. Now I'm going to get to cutting the fabric. One little note is that on some of the pattern pieces it will say cut to. You're pretty much just cutting on fold, or you're just overlaying another bit of fabric front facing and then just cutting that so you have two pieces. I promise you this is simple, but it can be a little bit confusing if it's your first ever pattern. If it is your first ever pattern and you're jumping in at level 3, I would probably recommend going and jumping in at like level 1. But ultimately, anyone can make these patterns. So also just follow along what I'm doing and you'll get to grips. Now we're on to the actual process itself. And I'm going to start cutting out the fabric, and then we're going to get to sewing after that. Pretty much, you should have the pattern pieces very similarly to what I have here, if not the exact same. And they've all been cut out, and as I said, I pinned together the ones, for example, the facing of the pocket and the pocket bag itself, just so later I know what I'm doing. Again, here's the arrow right here. This indicates your grain line, and for example, if it does say something like cut ×2 mirrored, it just means that you're doing one for your left side and one for your right, and it just means you cut the fabric with the texture facing each other, and then it basically just makes two mirrored pieces of fabric. Anyway, I've got my fabric here. I'm going to pre-iron it, and then I am going to cut everything out, making sure that the grain line is fine. As I said, I'm using an image for my actual fabric, so I'm just going to make sure that all the pattern pieces face up on the imagery, just because when you know, get to sewing it, it all matches up on the final look of the piece of clothing, rather than having an accidental piece which is like a horizontal bit of the imagery. Anyway, I'm going to get to cutting the fabric. I'm probably going to time lapse it, and then we will touch basis and get to the construction in a minute. So before I start cutting the fabric and turning it into a garment, I just wanted to show you that this is normally what my fabric looks like before it's pre-cut. It's actually a Japanese wood print of a water battle with dragons and all the samurai and all that sort of thing. I love artwork, and it's a huge part of Rough Cut. As you can see, I use artwork on almost every single piece of my clothing. As you can see here, I made this one in Italy. A big part of Rough Cut, if you didn't know, is that I like traveling around making pieces of clothing on the go. I've also always been very inspired by artwork. So before I cut this up, I just wanted to show you what it looked like. Back to the time lapsing. So something that's super helpful for me throughout this whole process, especially with this pattern because it's a skirt and there's not a lot of curves, so you can't differentiate one pattern piece from another. Let me give you an example. This pattern piece right here is one of the bottom front sides. There is two of them. There's a bottom front right, and then you pretty much just mirror it for the bottom front left. And this is one of the lower pieces of the front pattern pieces of the long skirt. Anyway, something that's helped me is that I've basically just got some labels. As I cut out my piece of fabric, on the fabric that I've cut out the pattern piece of, I'm pretty much just going to stick a label onto the fabric and just label it up exactly what it says on the pattern piece. This is just going to help me in the long run, so that when I'm actually sewing and I'm stitching these pieces together, it just means I know which one's which and what goes with what. Especially if you're using something like denim or a fabric where the texture is the same on both sides, it's good to know which side is your front, so then when you cut the left and the right, you kind of have it straight up. You know when you're sewing which piece to grab. It just makes things a little bit easier. So I've used these 4x6 labels that I use on my label printer for printing parcel, you know, addresses and stuff like that. I've just cut them into small little ones, so you can do the same thing if you've got one of them. And yeah, just gonna label the pieces. So it is the next day. I kind of stopped what I was doing yesterday, mainly because my hand was giving me quite a bit of trouble. I just got back from Egypt on a sewing trip where I made a full jacket out in the desert, and I fell off a horse and I wanted to go and check up my hand to make sure that it wasn't broken. It seems to be all good, but for the rest of the video you're going to see me wearing this wrist spraint here. Basically, before I carried on cutting the fabric, I just wanted to show you something. I'm just cutting these back pockets here, and you can see it says cut to mirrored. You can basically cut to and then fold over the edges when we get there, but what I'm actually going to do, which is slightly different, is I'm actually going to cut 4 of the pockets, and then I'm going to show you how to create its own sort of like interfacing on the inside, so we can sew it together and basically make them fold so they're accurate to all of the different angles on the pocket. Because if you iron down all the side edges of a pocket or something like that, it can sometimes lose the shape that you're trying to get from the actual patterns. The same as the previous tutorial with the Keystone Denims, I just did facings all around the pockets and then sewn them together. So the same here, just cut 4, and then when we get to explaining how to do them facings, then basically let you know what to do. But anyway, we're at the stage where I've basically cut out quite a lot of the process over there, and now we're just cutting out the cargo pockets, the actual detachable bag, and then the fly and the fly cover over there. But yeah, cut out 4 back pockets if you want to follow me with the facings for the pockets. And yeah, we'll resume today and try and get the whole tutorial done. So I just finished cutting out all of the fabric for the project so we can get to the sewing and slowly put this utility skirt together. Pretty much, I'm just going to walk you through it. So we have all of the panel pieces here. So we have the main front pieces with the folded piece of fabric right here. This will be the zip sort of fold cover piece that will go over the midsection zip. We have the pocket bags and the facings, the waistband, the back pockets, the fly cover and fly facing. These are all the back pieces right here. And then we have 2 medium cargo pockets, 1 big cargo pocket, and then this right here is optional. It is that detachable bag. I just realized I don't have any snap fasteners for that detachable bag. I need to just re-up on them because I keep forgetting it. I think I've done this for 2 sewing projects that we've done. But I'm going to build the detachable bag anyway and pin it on. What you can do is where the markers are for the buttons on the actual paper pattern pieces, you can mark them out on your pieces of fabric too. So this is all the pieces right here, and I'm going to just work my way through them. Start with the harder pieces, or the bits that may get a little bit confusing, get them out of the way, and then we'll move on to actually constructing the whole skirt. This is a skill level 3, but I think it's a mixture between skill level 2 and it sort of jumps into skill level 3 with like the pockets and the midsection zipper, and I guess the zip fly too. But it's pretty straightforward, and constructing it all together is just like little squares that go together. I'm excited to show you how everything works, so let's get to it. So I'm going to take you through the hardest subjectively part of the process first, and that is going to be using these 3 panels right here. And we're basically just going to tackle the zip fly before anything, so we can get it out the way, and then we can move on to the pockets and stuff like that. That is using the zip. Yours should be around 6 inches, and it should be a lightweight sort of plastic zipper. I've actually got 7 inches on the zip, so I'm just going to trim it down, and then you should have the zip facing, then you should have your zip cover. So you should have these 3 pieces right here, and then we're going to basically tackle this using these 2 front panels, so the front top left and the front top right. And then after we have finished inputting this zip and everything is sewn together and you followed me correctly, we're then going to head to the pockets, and it should finish up this section right here, which is basically going to be the whole front of the skirt. Depending on what fabric you use, just make sure that all your panel pieces are the right way up. It's quite easy for me because I have print on one and nothing on the other side. And then yeah, we'll tackle the pockets and do all them sort of techniques afterwards. I'm going to throw you on my head as a POV, so I'm going to switch hats to cap, and then I can just clip you on the front, and then we'll take you through this process. So let's do it. So I'm going to show you how to input now a zip fly around this area right here. You're basically going to need these 3 components right here. You've got your zip cover, your zip facing, and then your zip yourself. The zip that I've chosen, it is a plastic zipper because this is more of a lighter weight garment with a lot of drape. If we were doing something like a workwear jacket, then we'd probably get some metal teeth on this, but because it's like, you know, lightweight draping, I got a plastic zipper. And the zip facing itself needs to be kind of the same length as the zip, and as you can see, I've got a little bit too big right here, so I'm just going to trim this a little bit, or at least when I sew it in. You basically just want to leave a little gap between this little metal end, or in this instance plastic stopper for the zip, and the bottom of the zip facing here. So there needs to be a little gap, fingers width gap, so you can sew this facing on later. What I'll probably do, because this is plastic, is I'll just line it all up, sew it as normal, and then just cut this top end off here, maybe add some hand stitching to secure this in place. But the waistband is what's going to secure this in place. Anyway, let's get to the tutorial. So you've got these 3 components, so we're going to manipulate this in a way where this is going to be a fly at the top here. Then you obviously can undo the zip and then put the skirt on and off. So we'll leave these to the side for now, and we're just going to take the zip cover right here. What we're going to do, and you can get an iron out ready for this, and you can iron these pieces. For me, I'm actually not going to iron anything until we get later down the process. I've turned it on, it's heating up down there, but for this part you don't really need it. What we're going to do is we're just going to fold this vertically over, and you can see on the zip cover there's these 2 sort of curves at the bottom, so we're just going to fold them over, and you can see that everything sort of lines up. What we're going to do is we're going to throw a stitch just along this bottom curve. Make sure you're sewing along the bottom curve and not this straight sort of top piece up here. And then once you've done that, we're going to turn this inside out and sew it together. This is the double layered zip cover that will be going behind the zip, and then this facing will be getting sewn to the zip face down like that. And at the end we'll be able to create this whole thing, and it actually will just come up to about this area, and then this sort of section connecting these 2 front center pieces together to create one front piece. We're going to do a little flat felled seam on the bottom here, and we're going to cut some notches. I'll basically take you through the process, so let's get to it. This zip cover folded over, we're just going to stitch. Then, as I said, you're just turning this inside out now. You can see this makes our zip cover. And what we're going to do is, you can now iron this down, but I think I'm just going to do it by hand and by eye. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch all the way around this. My overlocker is kind of broken over there, but what you can do is, this is the moment that you would overlock this side edge right here. This is because it is going to show on the inside of your skirt, but I'm not going to do it. So as you can see there, this right here is my zip cover. What you can do is you can also hit this with a zigzag stitch all the way up. I might actually get my domestic machine out and do that off camera, because you're probably going to need to overlock this side edge. So, as you can see, I just did the zigzag stitch on both the panels right there just to clean them up. And what we're going to do is we're going to place the zipper onto the zip cover now, lining up the left side of the zipper with the edge which you have just zigzagged. And we're going to, like I said, going to leave a little gap, fingers sort of length gap at the bottom of the zip, so the bottom of the tape actually lines up with the bottom of the folded part that we just sewn down on the inside there. And we're going to get a zipper foot and we're going to run a stitch all the way along this, all the way to the top. You might need to move your zipper head out the way, but yeah, we're just going to run a stitch all the way along there, and then I'll show you what to do after. Just like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to grab our top front right, and as you can see it says right, even though for you this looks like the left panel. But what I just want to basically make clear is that this is your wearer's right and this is your wearer's left. So when I'm wearing this, as you can see, this would be my right panel and this would be my left. So you're always working off of the sort of right and left as if you are wearing it. What we want to do is we want to grab this zip with the cover that I've just shown you there, and we're going to, on the wearer's right, we're just going to place this down front facing, just like that. And you can see we're going to line up the actual cover to the top so it's flush with the top raw edge of the front top right, just like that. It's going to line up, and as you can see, like I said, my zip is slightly longer. We can trim this down later, but all the things you're lining up right now is to the top of this panel, not the top of your zipper if you're like me and your zip is slightly longer. I'm just going to zip the zip all the way down, and we're going to line up the front facings so they connect. And right here we're going to do a little half sort of an inch notch, but first we're going to stitch all the way along down that line, yeah, with your zipper foot again. And again, when you get lower, you might need to pull your zipper up. So we're going to line that up. Now what we're going to do, as I said, is we're just going to trim in half an inch sort of notch into right where the bottom point of this cover is right here. So just where the raw fabric is on the center where you've just sewn this in, we're just going to do a little half inch notch, just perfect like that. Now we can flip this over and we're going to run a top stitch just all the way down this right here, and this is going to sort of implant the zip and the cover in place. Then when we get to that notch, we're not sewing further down, so we're just going to leave it and do a back and forth stitch just before we get there. Now your zip is in place. So now we have the zip in place with the cover behind. We're actually going to grab our zip facing and we're just going to flip this over front facing onto the wearer's left, the top wearer's left of our front pieces. And then we're going to stitch all the way along here and then turn it inside out again. And we're going to do a little notch, half an inch there again afterwards. Now again, we're just going to cut a half an inch sort of cut right into there, as you can see, perfect. Now what you can do is you can iron this down and then it will help you turn it in on itself there, but I'm just going to do it by eye for the sake of the video. And the aim right now is to just leave about a millimeter gap where the underneath fold is showing. So on the outside, this just basically means that you won't see any folding. So just a millimeter gap, just fold it over a little bit more. And what you can do now is you can get a few pins and you can just throw it in here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to run a top stitch all the way along this. Now you can see we have sewn in the zip facing right here, and what you've got over here is you've got obviously your zipper and the cover placed in. We're going to fold the cover over, and we're basically moving this out the way. And what you can do is you can grab them pins again that you just had, and we're just going to pin this in place out of the way, because we're going to be manipulating and sewing the other side of this tape, of this zip, onto the zip facing. So now this is out the way, grab our wearer's left, and we're just going to overlap it, making sure that these two notches that we've cut of the raw edge line up, but also it kind of overlaps so it hides the zipper. Now what we're going to do is we're going to place our hand when we think that's in place. Again, what you can do is you can throw a pin in here just to make sure it's fully secure. We're going to fold this over, and you can see that our zip lines up with the facing. Now the cover is out the way, we're just going to stitch down that zipper. Now you can take that pin out that just held that in place, and you can see that when we unpin our cover from behind, fold it back round, you can see that this has now actually made our fly zip right there. So to clean this up, the reason you left that small gap at the bottom of the zip is because now when we turn it the other way, what we're going to do is we're going to move all of the wearers sort of right out the way. We're going to focus on stitching around this zip facing to make that decorative stitch on the outside. What I'm going to do, and what you can do too, is we're going to mark out that, and we're going to sew this from the outside textured part of our fabric. The reason we're going to do so is because we want to make sure it's super clean, and we don't want to sew over with our bobbin thread on the right side. So I'm just going to grab a wax marker, and what I'm going to do from the inside, I'm going to make sure it's all flat. I'm just going to mark out exactly where. You can actually grab something a little bit sort of sharper and harder than this. I don't know, I'm just going to use a bit of metal that's around the sort of studio or your house. And we're just going to mark where this is on the inside. And the reason we're doing that is so when we now turn it the other way, we sort of have a rough guide right here. It's kind of hard for you to see, but I can see it, of where I'm stitching the decorative stitch in. At this point, you also want to move that cover out the way again, because you don't want to get it caught. Right here, we can pull our needle out of the thread, and what we're going to do is we're going to pull that zip, and what we're going to do is we're going to pull the behind cover out again, and then this is where we're going to sew over the cover. So we're just going to carry on that stitch, and what I like to do at this point, I'm just going to start the stitch going back the way we came, and we're going to follow that stitch from where we started, and we're just going to cut in and do a second decorative stitch next to it. And what this has done, it's kind of hard for you to see, but as you can see, it lined up perfectly to stitching on the zip facing. You can use a different technique rather than marking it with something hard in your studio. That's kind of just what I thought of then. But yeah, you're basically just sewing along the outside, making sure you're following around that zip covering. So now you can see that the actual zipper is functioning perfectly. You can see on the other side, we have sewn down enough for the opening, and then the bottom of the actual cover is also attached right there. So you can see that it functions perfectly as a fly zipper. Now we're going to combat this down here. The way to do that is we're just going to flip this over, and you can see these notches now should match up perfectly, and the bottom should too, just like that, front facing. And now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch from the top of where that we've pierced these two bits of fabric. We're going to stitch all the way down, and we're going to do this about 5/8 of an inch. As you can see, we're leaving quite a bit of a gap on the side, quite a bit of fabric left over on the right of our sewing foot. We're going to run that stitch all the way down. I'm going to do a little back and forth tack at the beginning. I'm going to run that all the way down. So now you can see that we just made this seam right here, and it matches up perfectly, as you can see. Basically what we're going to do now is we can flip this over, and we're going to see that we don't want to be folding the underneath seam fabric this way, otherwise it will just kind of go the opposite way to what we've started doing with this zip. So we kind of want the fabric to manipulate over and under the front sort of wearer's left, just like this, and then it will just kind of line everything up a little bit better. So what we want to do, we can hold that in place. We want the fabric to be folding to the left if we're looking at it now. So the way we're going to do that is we're just going to unfold this seam, and I'm actually going to cut a little bit off this left seam right here. And then what this is going to allow us to do, when this left seam is trimmed, this left sort of raw edge, it allows us to fold this over and create a little flat felled seam. So yeah, let me just cut that and then we'll get back to it. Just like this. Now what we're going to do is you can use pins. Pins are your best friend for this little section here. You're not going to need too many, but we're just going to fold this over and sort of tuck it underneath that seam right there. Tuck it underneath and it should naturally fold. And then you're just going to throw a pin in there. So now we have pinned from the inside. The reason we have done from the inside is just to hold this in place, but you could have started from the outside, folded and put pins in, because like I said earlier, we don't really want our bobbin thread showing on the outside of our final garment, because it can just be a little bit messy. So the way to do this would be for me now to make sure I'm holding each of these in place as they've been flat felled, and I'm just going to take the pins and reposition them on the outside. And that's just going to hold that flat fell in place, and we've basically done it from the inside. Kind of done it wrong, but also it helps us hold it in place in the first place. So that's kind of my mess up, but do the pinning from the outside, as we don't want the bobbin thread showing on the outside. So I'm slowly taking them pins out and I'm repositioning them. Make sure that it doesn't come loose on the inside. It's going to still hold that double fold and make this flat felled. Just like that. Now we're going to run a stitch all the way along, and then that's going to close up the flat felled seam, and then we're going to run another stitch from the inside, so then we can follow it along and stitch it together. But this might only need one stitch, but you can do two if you desire, because it is quite a close together flat felled. I think we could just do this with one stitch. And as you can see, it will nice and perfectly match up with the stitch that you made before. I'm just going to add another little back and forth tack over this little area here, just to clean it up. So I might have struggled to just showcase exactly what I did because the camera just ran out of storage. So luckily I've got two of these cameras, so I'm just converting all the clips on the other one. Basically, I ran the stitch on the flat felled seam all the way down the outside of the fabric. I just swapped the pins over, and as you can see here, it looks super clean on the inside here, and obviously your zip looks super clean. We now have a functioning zip and a functioning sort of top half to our skirt. So the next step is to install the pockets. And how do we install the pockets, you may ask? Well, here we have two pocket bags, and we should have, if we've cut out correctly with the cut to mirrored, we should have two pocket facings. Right here, two pocket bags, and the way we're going to do this is we're going to sew the facings down to the side which doesn't have the curve on. Only one of the facings, obviously, the other one will go in the other pocket. We're going to sew both of the pocket facings down, and then when it's all in place, imagine that that facing is right there right now. We're going to sew front facing of the two pockets together, so that matches up perfectly. We're going to stitch all the way around that, then it should turn nicely inside out, and then the pocket bag should sit perfectly like this. And these are just some really nice opening pockets, and then that is your side seam right there. So now you kind of understand what we're doing. We're going to do the facings first. So we can kind of move the bit that we just sewn together out the way for now. So we'll do the facings first. Remember, pocket bag left, pocket bag right, just like that. And then I'm going to show you how to do the facings. The same with what I said about the back pockets. If you want to have facings for these facings, basically you don't want to fold over this edge right here and you'd rather do a facing, you're welcome to do that also. I might actually do that just for cleaning it up instead of ironing, and then you can do the same for the other side. So to be able to do that, we're just going to have to cut out another 2 of these facings. So actually cut 4 if you want facings. If you don't, you can just iron a little 1/4 inch all the way around this, and then you can sew it in place right here as your pocket facing. And if you want to add any sort of like coin pockets or anything like that, like a little pocket right here, so when this folds over, you can actually put little coins in this little pocket right here, then you can go ahead and do that. But I'm going to leave this quite blank for this tutorial. I've got quite a lot of excess fabric here, so I'm just going to grab a piece, and then I'm just going to cut 2 more facings out of this. So, just so I can show you on one of the facings, you're going to do the exact same with the other one right there. But just so I can show you exactly what we're doing, now these are front facing together, so your 2 textured sides are facing together. You're basically going to run a stitch all the way around this edge here, and this edge here only. Then we're going to turn it inside out, and then we're going to cut some of the excess away, and then we're going to sort of pin it, stitch it, and that is going to create a facing for the inside of our pocket facing. It basically just means you don't have to fold and then iron and then stitch it down, and then you might lose the shape of this curve right here. Let me show you. And what we want to do is we want to pay attention right now to which side we're doing. So you can do the exact same for the other side, but I'm just going to show you this now. Basically, we have our facing. This is going to sit right here in the pocket bag, and the one that is going to fold over is the outside one. So this outside piece right here, this is going to fold over and underneath. So when you're cutting the excess of the one that is the facing, make sure you don't cut the wrong one and then cut the same with this, and then you've got 2 that are one side and then you get a bit confused. Basically, we're just going to run this cutter all along there, just like this, and then you can take that, throw that in the bin, and then this is now the facing of your pocket facing. Now you can get an iron, but I'm just going to fold and I'm going to roll. So a good way without using an iron is basically turning inside out and then making sure you fold and then roll, fold and then roll. And then what you can do to help you with this is just add a few pins into this. So now you can see that we've pinned that all around this facing underneath. You can see that instead of ironing that shape all the way round, we've just added another bit of fabric, which is basically the facing. It uses a tiny bit more fabric, but in the long run, I feel like it really helps with keeping the shape of the pieces which I've provided for the pattern. Now we're going to attach this to the pocket. We're just going to line this up to the edge, just like that. And then I'm going to reposition these pins just so it goes through all 3 pieces of fabric. You don't need to do this for all of them, but you can if you want. And now that is pinned down, we can just sew along and just put this facing right into the pocket bag. And then sewing all the way up the side edge and all the way along the top to close this off. So as you can see, that facing now works perfectly. It just basically gives us a little bit more fabric where you're going to be placing your hand in the pocket. And also, like I said, it gives you the option to know that this is the part now where if you wanted to add any coin pockets, now would be the time. I'm just going to do the exact same thing with the other side. Again, really make sure that you're cutting the right side for the facing and you're not cutting the wrong side, so then you have the wrong side for your other pocket bag. I'm going to do that off camera, and then I'm going to show you how to attach these pockets right here to the main front panel that we just made. So now, as you can see, we've got both pocket bags with the pocket bag facings in them. And now we can grab this panel back again, just like that. And we know that this one, front facing, should connect up right there. And the same with the other side, but we'll do this one by one. we're just going to sew all around this area right here. Throw a few pins in if you need to line it up. And then again, just like we did with the facings, if you did the same technique here, we're just going to fold this inside out, throw pins all the way along here, and then hit this with a top stitch. And that should basically put the pocket bag on the inside. As I said, now you just want to turn that inside out. I just pinch and roll the same, and then we can use our pins to throw a few different pins in there as we go. And as I mentioned, we're just top stitching all the way around this curve right here. This is the opening of the pocket. So now you can see we have something just like this, and then we can turn this over. Now what you want to do is you want to fold this so the pocket bag matches up with each other right there. And by the way, I just wanted to mention that the reason I'm not using an iron is not because I don't have one. It's actually under the table, but every time I use the iron it just leaks and steams everywhere, so I need to get a new iron too. So new overlocker, new iron, and then I can iron stuff and show you how you do it that way. But most of the sewing that we do over here, like, you know, it would really help for an iron, but if you just pinch, roll, pin, it might take a little bit longer, but it might not maybe have the most cleanest, like, you know, folds and stuff like that. But I'm basically just showing you this whole tutorial without an iron. I might turn it on when we get to the bottom and the cinching mechanism, just because there's a lot of fabric that needs to turn over and stuff like that. But yeah, for context, I do have an iron, but it leaks everywhere and it's annoying and it gets really damp in this room. So I am just going to do the fold and pin. Anyway, back to the tutorial. Now you've got something that looks a little bit like this for the inside of your pocket bag connected up to the skirt front panel. We're basically going to close up this pocket bag. Just grab the inside of this. We're going to match up these corners over here, and we're going to pin along this little area right here. But make sure you're not pinning the main front panel, you're just pinning that pocket bag. Once it's pinned, now would be the time that you want to hit this with an overlocker. That is because it just cleans up the raw edges. But in my case, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to unpin, and I'm basically just going to fold up and actually fold up a little 1/2 inch of the pocket right here. And I'm going to do the same for the other side. This is where the iron would come in handy. And this just closes up the pocket bag. You might feel it on the inside, but it actually will make it look quite clean. As you can see right here, and I'm just going to throw a pin in there. You can do this a different way. If you have an overlocker, overlock it. If you don't, you can either do what I'm doing, or you can just bind the edge. So you can use an extra bit of fabric to just bind the edge. But in my instance, I think this works pretty good. Now we're going to stitch along this whole area right here to close up the bottom of the pocket bag, and then we're going to flip this all inside out, and then we're going to connect up the top and connect up the side. But I'll show you this first. Now, as you can see, the inside of that pocket bag right there, it's all closed up, no sort of like weird loose fraying edges. We're just going to close up this right here, and you can see that that matches up perfectly. What we're going to do is, you can see this little zigzag of fabric right there. We're just going to close that up, match this to the side seam, and then we're just going to run a little stitch all the way down this, so it connects the pocket bag to the actual front left, whereas left of the front right here. And then we're going to do the same for the top, match that up, and then run a little stitch. And then we're going to do the exact same thing for the top, just pull that over a little bit, run a stitch all the way around to close it off. And then that is the pocket bag fully completed. And whilst we're stitching along this front panel here, we're also closing the pocket bag itself from the inside. It's becoming one big sandwich. We're just closing off the whole pocket bag. Run a stitch along the top, and then we'll stop at the edge, make sure the needle's in, and then we can turn and just close up that right there. Snip the excess fabrics, and now we can see that is a full pocket bag constructed. You can see on the outside, I can put my hand in it and it functions perfectly. The only downside with the technique that I showed you is that you're going to have this fraying on the inside, but I don't mind that too much. Pocket bag installed. Now we're just going to do the exact same thing with the other side, and then that is the whole front of your skirt pretty much constructed. So, as you can see, I've just finished inputting the other pocket off camera. I think this is starting to look really, really nice. The fly zipper is input perfectly. It's really clean on the inside too. We've got like super clean pocket bags. The zigzag stitch on the cover. It looks really, really, really nice. The flat felled seam on the inside. We could trim some threads in there, but overall, that is kind of the hardest part out the way, especially with the zipper. I'm now going to take you on a journey of how to sew together the detachable bag and the cargo pockets. And then afterwards we'll get to construction, because there is a few confusing things, like we need to connect this right here, which connects to the front panel just like that, but then it also folds over, and then we've got to input a zip somehow to zip off the main part of the skirt, you know, kind of zip off that bottom bit, and then it makes that midsection sort of cut off. You know what I mean, basically make a short skirt or keep it on for the long skirt. So let's do the pocket bags first. I'll take you through the process and then we'll get to construction afterwards. Right, so we can move this panel to the side now. I'm just going to show you what we're working with all the pockets, just so it makes a little bit more sense to you. We've got these two right here. These are your medium cargo pockets, just so I can break them down so you know what's going on. I have two of them, there's 1 and 2. I'm gonna move one to the side. This right here is your pocket flap. This right here is your main piece for the medium cargo, so the flap would obviously input over the cargo pocket like that. And this right here is your side gusset. So this, basically you can do this a bit wider if you want. It will just make your cargo pocket come out more. This is basically going to be sewn all around the edge of your cargo pocket right there. But we're going to need to do a few things before we actually stitch these together. If you've watched some of my other tutorials, for example like the hoodie tutorial, or you've watched the pocket system tutorial, which basically shows you how to do these in one video, you'll know that there is little things that we need to do. For example, we need to turn this over double and then stitch it from the outside just to close off the top of the pocket. And then also this is kind of where an iron would come into the process, because with the side gusset we need to fold over one side so that stitches down to the garment itself. There's a few little confusing bits, but I'm going to take you through the process of one, and then I'll do the other off camera. And then, just so you know, that right there is the cargo pockets, and that, like I told you, is another one. This right here, we were testing this. It's a detachable bag for the garment itself. So you're able to sort of like attach it on and off. It's like a little wallet bag. And basically the way this works is you have these panels right here. Again, you have the flap, but this right here would work something like this. So we have two of these main panels of this detachable bag. These are front facing together just because I cut them together. But essentially on the imagery side of this main panel, you'd input this, you'd input the flap, and then you'd sew the front facings when this is incorporated, and then this right here works as a strap that gets sewn onto the back of the detachable bag, just like that. And then finally you'd add some buttons, so it buttons onto your garment itself, and then it also functions as a second flap over the bag. So you can choose to do some interesting things with this. I'm going to show you the very base of it and then let you go on your own journey, but you could wad/batting the inside of this, so add insulation fabric in between some of the layers. This would just give it a little bit more sort of like weight to it. I might end up doing that if I have any left, but we'll see. But we'll get to that. This is just the detachable bag and all the components. And then finally, I didn't mention this because I forgot, but right here we just have one big cargo pocket, which basically works the exact same as your other cargo pocket. So I'll show you one cargo pocket, we'll get onto the detachable duffel bag, and then the other cargo pockets I will do off camera, and then I'll tell you where we can put them on the garment when we get to it. Let's do it. I'm heating up the iron that I said I didn't want to use because it just makes the whole place damp. But in the meantime, we're going to take the main panel of our medium cargo pocket. We're basically going to fold the top of it over. On the pattern itself, it says allow a 1/2 inch seam allowance when cutting fabric, so it should look something a little bit like that even when you fold it over. And what we're going to do is we're going to flip this and then hold it down with our fingers and then try and get a pin in there to hold it in place. As I just did, we're going to stitch that down, cut any excess threads, and you can see that we've just closed up the top of that cargo pocket. No raw edges. Now, the iron should be warm enough right now to do this, but I doubt it's got any water in. We're basically going to fold over 1/2 inch on one of the sides of our side gusset. Now what we're going to do is we're going to grab our pocket again, move that to the side because we'll need it in a second. We're basically going to fold over one of the sides right here, not too much, one of the top parts of the side gusset, just like that. And we're just basically going to stitch that down, just like that. Now we can match up the bit that we've just folded on the top of the side gusset with the top hem of the main part of the medium pocket. And now we can stitch all around the side gusset and basically stitch on the raw edge, don't stitch on the folded edge. See, it's really annoying, my iron keeps making this noise and I need to get a new iron. When we get towards the end of this, we're going to need to do another fold just to match that up. So what you can do, because we need to close this the same as we did with the top side of the side gusset, is we can pull our needle out, cut the excess threads, and we know that this will fold over, I don't know, 1/2 inch. So I'm going to cut a 1/2 inch from the top, just like that distance right there. And then we can just fold this over, actually stitch this down before we connect it to our main panel. Stitch it down, cut the excess, and then when you put that back together, it matches up perfectly. We can carry on our stitch, hit the edge with a back and forth stitch, cut the excess threads again. As you can see, it's starting to take place of what the cargo pocket will look like. So you can now turn this inside out, and what I am going to do, what you don't have to do, is you could leave it there and then you could just iron this down just all around and then it will sort of take shape. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little top stitch all the way around this cargo pocket, top stitching the side gusset and the front, sort of closing them together. Again, we can pinch and roll, and then you can grab some pins just to avoid the iron. You can grab some pins and just place that. What the top stitch does, I guess it's the same as the iron, but it pretty much just holds this pocket's uniformity sort of, so it has a little bit more structure to it rather than just going where the fabric wants it to go, you know. Now this first little bit you're going to stitch over here at the top where we folded these both over. It might be a tiny bit tricky to get through on a domestic, so you might want to use a tool just like a wedge or something to get behind that sewing foot right there, and then it should make it easier for you. Going around this bit is quite tricky because, as you can see, it folds up fabric. So what I like to do is put the needle down in the fabric and kind of push it underneath and away, so you know that the direction where your needle's going now doesn't have any folds. You kind of want to just manipulate the fabric with this. I'm just hitting a back and forth stitch on the edges too, just to secure it. As you can see there, it would be in the way if we just turned and started sewing. So again, we can just kind of push that underneath. And just like that, you can see that that right there is pretty much our cargo pocket completed. To make it easier when you're actually sewing this to the final garment, we can just fold up that fold that we made underneath. We can add some pins so it matches flush all the way down. And what this does, it just lines it up already, so then we can take the pins out and just pin it in the perfect sort of place on the fabric, the final garment, you know. Just like that. It looks a little bit weird, but it's basically all lined up now, ready for you to put it on the fabric. What we're going to do now is we're actually going to grab the last piece of the puzzle, which is this, and this is your sort of, you know, flap for the pocket. The way we're going to do this, we're going to stitch all the way around this side, this bottom and this side, but we're not going to stitch the top. We're going to stitch round, 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 but we're not going to stitch the top. And then we're going to turn this inside out, top stitch it the same way we've done this side bit here, and then that will be our flap. What you can do to make this inside out turn a tiny bit easier, you can just trim the little corners off there, and the same with the other side, just trim the little corners off right there. Now we can grab something sharp. I like to use a pair of scissors, and I'm going to put my thumb right up in the thing, turn it inside out, and as I'm turning it inside out, I'm just going to use the sharp bit of the scissors to make sure that it gets turned correctly. Be gentle with this, because if your scissors go through the corner, then you know, it stabs a hole in the garment, but just like that. Now we can iron this bit down. I actually might flatten that with an iron quickly. And right there you can see that we've just top stitched that flap down. Now this whole pocket is pretty much ready to stitch onto the skirt. So I'm going to do the same for the other medium-sized cargo pocket, and then the same with the big cargo pocket, and then we'll get to the next steps. So I just finished the 2 cargo pockets, and I also finished the big cargo pocket as well. We're going to tackle this together now. This right here, we can move all this to the side. This right here is the detachable bag. So I'm going to walk you through the process of how to do this. It's kind of optional. It's more of just a little button-on thing that you can add to the skirt itself. It's not mandatory in this pattern. I don't really think anything is, except from like the general construction, but I'm going to take you through the process of it anyway, so you know how to do it. And then we're going to get to main construction, and then eventually I'll show you how to do the cinching and everything, but let's take this step by step. So let's get onto this detachable bag. So I have all of the panels for the detachable bag right here, but before I jump into the detachable bag, I kind of just wanted to show you what this was looking like now, you know. I think the waistband, it looks really nice. You can see this right here is where the zip would detach under, right there, and then these are the 2 bottom panels. So I'm going to put them back up, and we're going to sort of target this a little bit later. I don't really normally make things like long skirts and stuff like that, but I'm quite excited to see how this is going to come out. So yeah, let's dive right into this bag right here. I've laid out all of the panels so you can see what's going on here again. So pretty much this is the strap, that goes without saying, and then we have both sides of the bag. So the strap would attach to one side, it'd kind of hang and dangle down when it's attached to the skirt, and then this side that is the pocket bag, that is the flap, and then when the bag's together this could attach as a little you know, lid sort of flap again, and then when it's attached to the skirt itself there'd be some popper buttons here. It's kind of a different sort of design for a bag, but I thought it was kind of cool to add something that, you know, you could just attach on as like a utility sort of bag, which kind of matches the utility vibe of the skirt itself. What and how are we going to construct this? So first off, I just wanted to move all of the panels aside and just look at this. This is your pocket bag. As you can see, it's got that curve on the left. This would sit right there. But we are going to quickly cut some facing, just a facing for this top part right here. And the reason we're going to do so is because we don't really want to fold that in on itself. So the same way we just did with the back pockets and the facings of the pocket bags, I'm just going to place a bit of fabric over the top of this. I'm sort of hoping you guys have some nice fabric left to the side. And right now we're just going to cut this design. We're going to do it so it's front facings together, so the image faces the image, just like that. And then I'm just going to flip this over to make it easier for me. And then we're just going to cut this out. And then again, we're going to stitch along the top and then turn it inside out, throw some pins and stitch it down. This is going to create the inside facing of the pocket. This is because we didn't add any other seam allowance to the top, and I'm not really interested in folding it over to sort of make this a smaller pocket bag. I'm just going to cut this out, just like that, and then we can sew this together. Now this is sewn, we can just, split up them seams and then fold it in half. Make sure it's nice and even. And then we're just going to run a top stitch along the top of this. And what you could have done, I didn't, you could have overlocked the inside of this facing. I'm just going to trim these little corner edges off right here. I should be using my scissors, not my snippers. Don't do what I am doing here. Then that is our pocket bag right there. So now we can pull this panel over and we're basically just going to construct this bag one side and then the other side. So we're going to sew this down, not the top. So again, we're just going to sew this all around, not the top, because we've just turned that over for the inside sort of, hem. And then, yeah. I'm trying to do sort of like a closer seam allowance with this, just because we are going to be adding more layers to this, as in we're going to be sewing the two pieces together and then turning it inside out, so it just makes this thread a little bit more invisible. Just like that, we have a pocket bag. Now what we're going to do is we're going to grab the pocket flap, and just like what we did for the other cargo pockets, we are just going to basically do the same thing. Stitch all around, leave the top, turn inside out, and then top stitch, and then that is going to be placed right there perfectly on top. Now what you can do, which we didn't do to the other ones, is you can just stitch a really close seam allowance along the top there. Now what we're going to do with the front facings of the pocket flap, we're just going to stitch that down just like that, so then we're able to actually fold it over and then hit it with another top stitch right there. You can kind of line this up so it's in the middle, just like that, and then we can fold it over, hit a little top stitch on there. So it should look something like this. Now you've got your flap and your little pocket bag. And that is one side pretty much completed. Now we can move that to the side and sort of grab the strap, and we'll focus on now attaching the strap to the bag itself. And the way we're going to do that is I am going to pretty much stitch all the way down one side of the strap, and then I'm going to turn it inside out, hit that with a top stitch, and then with the other side we're just going to fold in the sort of the same kind of technique that we did with the inside pocket bag. We're just going to basically manually fold this side and that side in, just because when you have a long strip like this, it can be super annoying to sew both sides and then try and turn it inside out. If you guys want to go and do that, then you can, but for me this is just kind of like a little add-on thing. So I'm going to stitch down one side, turn inside out, top stitch, and then we will hit with a little iron to fold all the edges in, and then top stitch that side too, and that will kind of make the strap. And then we'll clean up the bottom bits. I think what I'll do is I'll just fold them inside out, and then we'll top stitch it down to this back side. What this will do is it will mean the strap is attached to this back side, and then we're going to sew these together front facings, turn inside out, top stitch all around, and then it will make a little detachable bag thing. Yeah, it's just kind of like a little fun thing that I added to the pattern, and then you add the buttons at the top and it kind of hangs off the skirt, but I don't have any buttons. I'm not kind of prioritizing this to make it look super amazing, but yeah. Anyway, let's get to it. For this part of the video, I decided to speed up me making a strap, and that is mainly because there is multiple ways of somebody making a strap. Essentially it is just two pieces of fabric, lengthways super long, and then the width is super short, and then obviously you just turn the whole thing inside out, or you fold and iron your side seams of the long length. It's quite a simple process, but I kind of messed up me doing it in this video, so I sort of sped it up so it's easier for you to digest. So a lot of different people have different ways of sewing these sort of straps, so I didn't really film and show you exactly how I did mine, but essentially I literally just folded the edges, ironed it down, and then top stitched it. It's pretty much just a strap, but if you've got this far, then I'm trusting that you already have your sort of process and your way of doing that. Right now what we're going to do I'll throw you back on my head so you can see exactly what's going on. What we're going to do is we're going to sew these straps onto the back piece now. So essentially what I'm going to do, you know this top part here is going to fold over as a strap, so we don't want to be sewing on this sort of area right here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to line it up with that corner, and I'm going to sew all the way down the stitch mark, round up, and then, you know, cut it off and do the exact same with this panel. So just following that stitch line, following that bottom stitch line, following that side stitch line again, and then we're just going to sort of close that off. That will make it so that, you know, the strap is secured to the back panel. So now we have both of the sides completed. Now what we're going to try and do is tuck this strap in on itself, just so it's kind of out the way. We can maybe fold that over a little bit more. And then we're going to place that right on top. And what we're going to do now is try and start sewing with front facings together, so the texture's together now, where all of the details are facing each other. We're going to sew this round, and then we're going to turn it inside out, and then close up the edge, and then we should have our bag ready to top stitch, and then it will be finished. So the way we do this is we're going to start sewing around the top, head all the way around, stop sewing around the top of the other side, and then we can turn everything out through this little gap that we've left. And then with the seam allowances that we've done here, it should naturally have a fold on this top piece right here, and then we can just top stitch around it all. So pins are your best friend in this at this sort of point, mainly because, you know, there's a lot of fabric to deal with in the middle. So I feel like you fully understand this, so I don't really need to say anything else. I'm kind of just going to sew. We'll speed this little area up and you can work out what we're doing. But again, we're just going to start sewing along this corner, this sort of edge bit, all the way round, all the way round, and then stop sewing up here. But you want to back and forth stitch on both of these sides, so when you start and when you finish. Just because when we're going to be turning this inside out, it can be quite tricky and the stitching might come apart. So just like this, I'm going to back and forth stitch. Make sure your pieces are lined up correctly. Now, as you can see, I've just closed up that top piece just by following the fold that it naturally wanted to do because of our seam allowances. And then I'm just top stitching all the way around the whole bag, but make sure you're not stitching down the straps. So when we get round to this sort of area here, we can just move them out the way and then stitch the top, and then you know, move them out the way underneath, and it should all be good. You're just stop stitching this bag, and then this little detachable bag attachment will be finished. So yeah. So, just like that, now we have our finished little fun detachable bag. This just attaches to the side. What's really nice about it is this will hang just like that on the side of the skirt, and then you have 1, 2, 3 popper buttons, and it's just like a fun little thing that kind of sits there, you know. It's more for the look, less for the utility of it, but it's just a fun little piece. And then if you wanted to wear it just on its own, or carry it, or put something in it and carry it separately, you know, you also can as well. If you followed along with that, that's fun. If you chose to not do it, then that's all good. We will move back onto the construction of the main skirt. Let's do it. So now we're back onto the main construction of the utility skirt again. And I'm going to start by just finishing up the front pieces. And I just wanted to run you through something real quick, and something you should probably be very careful of, which is why it's really good to label these garments. Right here you can see I have front top right, front top left, and you can see that I've accidentally just went to put the bottom front right on the left side, just naturally because they all kind of look like squares. So it's just one thing to sort of like look out for. You can see there's a diagonal line here, and obviously that goes this side, and then obviously the bottom left would go the other, just like that. And then in between this, we can kind of move this up a little bit, and you can see that this is where the zip cover would go, and then this is where you zip off the midsection of the skirt. So before we do anything, and before we get to constructing the actual skirt together, there's two things we've got to do. The first thing is to basically construct the bottom pieces together, and for that we're literally just going to do another flat felled seam, the exact same as the top and how we did it just below that fly zipper. And then the other thing is we need to sew the back pockets onto the back, and then we can start kind of doing the construction and putting it all together, and actually like constructing the zip mechanism and going down to doing the cinching and all that. But first we need to focus on attaching these two bottom pieces together, same flat felled seam, and then the back pockets of the skirt, and then we can kind of move on and get to construction. So let's do it. So again, the same way that we did this flat felled seam just below the fly, we're going to do the same down here. So we're going to fold this one over, or at least just do front facings of both the two bottom panels, and then we're going to hit this with 5/8 of a stitch all the way down, trimming the side where it folds over, and then just recreating that flat felled seam. I'm going to put you on POV and show you the process. We will cut it up so you can see the important pieces, but I probably won't teach you how to do that because I already did earlier on in the tutorial. So just watch, and then we should be able to then get onto the back pockets. So let's do it. So what we want to be doing is we want to be folding over. If you can see this side right here, we're going to be folding this side over that side. So we're folding the maker's left over the right. The reason we're doing that is because the flat felled seam is going to face the same way and to keep the consistency through the whole skirt itself. Basically, we are going to be folding it over this way. So the flat felled seam, if I hold that in place, is going to be folded towards the left, or the maker's right. So if we're doing that, it means that we have to trim this piece on this side. I'm doing it from the top, I've turned it inside out, but basically, just to reiterate that again, where if I flip this over, we want the fold of the flat felled seam to be facing the bottom right front, the maker's right. If I flip this over, it's going to be this side that we want to trim. This side, not this side. As you can see, I just messed it up and did the wrong side by accident. Just so we have something like that. Now what we can do is we can do exactly what we did for just the bit under the fly zip, and we can fold that bit of fabric over and do it that way. But we can do it from the other side, just like this, and so our pins go in the right place. We can fold that over and fold it over again, keep turning it and throwing some pins in. I'm going to speed this bit up. And then, as you can see, I kind of messed up and cut the wrong side to start with there, but it's okay. We can kind of trim this little area because this is at the bottom of the skirt itself, and you can see that when we cut the pattern we have this kind of point, and all this bottom bit is going to fold over anyway, and then this is where the cinching mechanism is going to go. So if anything, it kind of knocks off a little bit of fabric that we don't actually need. So I'm going to get to the end of that, and I'm just going to throw a pin, or actually I'm going to pinch this, and then we are going to stitch all the way down this flat felled seam. I didn't want to do it from the inside, but I kind of just started doing it, and now I'm stitching with the bobbin friend on the outside. So yes, we're going for it. So I was just filming that whole process. I basically went from just completely sewing that flat felled seam that you just saw me just start the stitch of, all the way to sewing a whole back pocket on and explaining what we were doing next, and the camera overheated and it didn't didn't film any of it. So I'm going to jump back a little bit from where I got to and sort of explain to you what's going on. So I just stitched all of that flat felled seam in right there, and it looks super clean on the inside. Just to reaffirm what I was saying a minute ago, I just basically messed up the flat felled seam at the bottom, but I actually think it's a blessing in disguise, because if you notice there is a little point right here, that is where we are folding over and adding the cinch channel into the bottom of the skirt right there. I'm going to be folding this over anyway, so it basically just, you know, takes away a little bit of the bulk of fabric to not have to fold over a double flat felled seam and all that sort of thing. Anyway, so right now we have just got to the point where we have finished constructing everything we need to for the front of the skirt, and we can actually move that back to the side for now. And what I did off camera was I basically did one of the pockets. I'm just going to show you that I input it right there, as you can see. This is a really clean hemmed pocket. And the way we did this pocket so that it doesn't have any ironed edges was we just did it the exact same way we did the process before for the pocket facing for the pocket bag. The way we did that was obviously just cut another one, sew in the bit that we actually want to fold over, and then it becomes our facing because we just pinch and roll, top stitch it. Yeah. That's pretty much how I just did that back pocket. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on POV on my head and then just basically talk you through the process of the back pocket, because luckily I still have one more to do. So it's quite lucky that I didn't get too far through the process and then I couldn't show you. So let me show you with the other pocket. This is what we've got right here. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to stitch all the way around this whole pocket with these two front facings. As I showed you, I cut 4 of them. So this one pocket has 2 worth, and then this other side pocket has the other 2 that we cut out. So you should have cut out 4 to be able to do it this way. Otherwise you would have had to sew with a seam allowance, cut the fabric with a seam allowance, then fold and then iron, and then, you know, do it that way. But I'm showing you the facing way. Basically, as you can see, this bottom one right here is going to be the one that actually we want on the piece of garment. So this top one is basically just going to fold over as the facing. And the way we're going to do this is we are going to stitch all the way around, like literally just closing this whole thing up, stitching all the way around, and then I'm going to pierce this top piece of fabric right here, and then we're going to cut all around so we can remove that little bit inside, and then we are going to fold, pinch, roll, top stitch, and then that will be the pocket completed. So let me just show you. Now we have stitched around the whole edge of the pocket itself. We're basically going to cut this top one, but make sure that you're doing it the right side. So obviously we want this pocket to sit next to our other one right there perfectly. So we don't want to be cutting this bottom one, because if we did and we acted as if that was the facing, then obviously we'd have 2 of the same pocket. So remember, this side is the one that we want to cut, this top layer right here. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm not cutting both sides, and I'm actually just going to pierce into this fabric right here. Now what we can do is we're basically just going to cut like a finger's length away from the stitching all the way around the inside of this pocket bag. Quite handy for me because I'm not actually going to use scissors. I'm going to use my rotary cutter, electric rotary cutter, but when it gets to the edge, it naturally stops. So I can go all the way around, just like that. Now we can actually remove this little one, throw it away. We can see that right there is the facing for our pocket. And again, just to make it easier for you, these little right angle corners, all of them, you can sort of trim off the edge, just like that. And it will make it easier for you to turn inside out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn this whole thing inside out, cut the corners, make it easier for myself, and then it should be ready for you to either iron if you chose to do that, or we can just throw pins in as we have the whole tutorial, and then we're going to stitch it down. So it's easier for you to turn this inside out using all of the corners first. Just throw your thumb in there and just get that turned inside out. We can clean these up in a minute. That. Now what we can do to clean them up is, as you can see, the corners, you want them to be proper, so you can just get something like your scissors and just push that point out, but don't put too much pressure on it again, because you might go straight through the fabric. Now, as I mentioned, we're just going to pinch and roll and then throw pins all the way around this. Right now you can see that I've pinned all the edges of this pocket, and you can see that right now it will go perfectly where we want it. But before we actually start sewing around this pocket, we actually just want to sew all around just the curve bit right here to create the hem. The hem needs to be separate, otherwise if you stitch it down you won't have a pocket. And to be able to do that, we're just going to slowly top stitch all around that curve right there. So now we have stitched that hem all around that curved bit. We can actually start pinning it to the garment. We want to make sure that it's lined up correctly. And then what we're going to do is we can take the pins out and just start placing them back in, but catching that bottom bit of fabric now. Obviously not pinning this pocket opening, just all around the outside. Now that's pinned in place, what we're going to do is we are just going to start top stitching all the way around this, just like we have with this one. Started up there, went all the way around and then back up. And again, we're not going to stitch around this curve because obviously that is the opening of the pocket. So now we just put the two back pockets on. Unfortunately I didn't film the first one, but the second one I hope you were able to understand what we were doing there. I think they look really, really nice right there. And I think it's now time to sort of evaluate what we've done so far and what we're going to do going forward. This is quite an easy pattern, as I've mentioned. I think anybody can do this. There's not a lot of like huge layers and stuff like that. Maybe the zip might be kind of difficult, but I think it's all straightforward, to be honest. What we have done, we started with the fly zipper and we input that, did the flat felled seam all the way down, and then we added the two side pockets. After that, we've closed up this exact same thing right here with the flat felled seam, and then we constructed the cargo pockets, and then we also constructed this detachable bag. We went over and did the two back pockets, and luckily we don't have to do the flat felled seam on the back, and this is kind of what we're left with right now. So you can see that when this is folded in half, I can't really do it with my hand, but when this is folded in half, the same as this one right here, then you can see that that would be what the zip goes under, and then you can kind of gauge this up here would be the short skirt, and then this down here would be the attachable piece. So you're able to obviously zip it on and off if you want. So I'm stood here thinking about my next steps, and not because I do not know how to construct the pattern, but because I don't think I have the right size zip. And for this project, you're going to need a 50-inch zip, in other words, 127 centimeters. But I don't have that because I'm not prepared. So I'm going to show you how to do it another way. And it's the exact same process as if you have the 50-inch zip or you don't. But I'm going to have to do it in two zips, one for the front, one for the back, and they're both going to be open end. So it basically just means that when you're putting this on and off, you just have to unzip one side, and then one side would fall down, and then you unzip the other, and then the other side would fall down too. So I'm going to do this in two zips for this tutorial. I can assume that most of you are kind of in the same boat. I think it is quite hard to find a 127/50-inch zip, you know, in your local hardware sort of fabric shop. So I do think that most people are probably going to be in the same boat. It does say it on the pattern, but in my case, I didn't really think about it, and I should have really thought about the zip. I ordered the right zip for the fly and everything, and the right hardware that I'm going to input onto the actual piece of clothing, but I just didn't think about the zip. I'm going to have to do it in two bits, but luckily I do have two really nice zippers right here that I'm able to do it with. I'm just going to have to trim them down. You're probably going to have to do the same. If it's 50 inches, then just two 25-inch zippers, and then I will show you how to input them. But what we're going to go and do is we're basically going to be constructing the top of the skirt, and then we're going to be constructing the zip flap and the other zip flap, putting them together, sewing them onto the top, and then whilst we're doing the top we can also add the cargo pockets to the side and the waistband, and then afterwards we will construct the bottom, do the cinching, and then construct the zip onto the bottom piece, and then all together it will all come together. So we're basically making one short skirt, and then we are sort of building it out with the cargo pockets and all them little bits and bobs, and then we are going to make the long bit and attach it at the end. So it should all just make sense at the end. But yeah, pretty much let's just go for it. When we get to the zip sort of area, I will POV it, and then you'll be able to fully see what's going on. Clearly these zippers that I chose are perfect size anyway. I might have to trim this one down slightly because it kind of goes off, but they are perfect size anyway. So it just means that when you're taking the skirt on and off, it's not just one quick like zip off all the way around. It just means you're going to have to zip one bit and then zip the other. But I'm going to try and do it so you zip one way and then you carry on unzipping the other. It's just going to be quite annoying to put back on, but you know, here we are. So everything else can be moved to the side except the top front and the top back, and yeah, pretty much everything moved to the side. What we're going to do is we're going to sew front facings along the sides. We can grab the front and sort of flip it over. We're basically going to be sewing these skirts together, and then in order we're just going to tackle, so we're sewing them together on the sides, top stitching them down, and then we're going to tackle the waistband so it's done out the way, and then we'll get to the fun parts like the cargo pockets and then move on from there. Let me POV this. So what we want to do is we just want to match up the corner and the other corner of the top of each panel, and then we're going to stitch all the way down. This isn't going to be a flat felled seam on the side, it's just going to be a stitch and then a top stitch on top. Now we can turn this round, we can sort of run a top stitch, and I always like to make my top stitches face the inside front, so the fold and all the excess fabric. Oh, let me just cut all this rubbish thread. All the raw fabric is basically going to be facing away from the front, so then we can top stitch with that top stitch there and the fold facing the front way. Actually, I think we can actually install one of the cargo pockets right now. I think it's better to do it right now than to do it after, because it's just going to be harder for us. I'm going to grab one of my cargo pockets, and the medium cargo pockets should just perfectly fit right here. And I'm just going to do them below the pocket itself. We want to make sure that when we're stitching it, we move the pocket bag underneath out the way. So when I'm pinning, I'm being really careful now, because that pocket bag is stitched to this side seam. So when we're inputting these cargo pockets, we can kind of manipulate the pocket bag out the way, but the flap itself is slightly going to go over. So when we reach in the pocket, you'll feel it, but I don't think that matters too much. So now you can see I tried to pin under that pocket bag. So when we go to stitching it, we just want to make sure that the pocket bag is out the way. I'm just going to move it out the way for the first stitch, and then you can kind of just fold it back under, because if we sew directly on this, then it's going to get in the way of the pocket bag. So as you can see, I stitched all the way around this cargo pocket, just where I threw the pins in, making sure the pocket bag's out the way. And because we've naturally just put this in the middle of the seam where the pocket bag is connected to, then obviously we are going to go into the pocket bag a little bit, and you can kind of feel it in there, but I don't think it makes too much of a difference. It's just a slight little bit of a stitch in the way. But if you're not connecting the pocket bag to the side seam, which you don't have to do if you're kind of experienced at doing it, then this won't happen, but mainly if you are, then it will. We're basically doing the same sort of procedure as what we've done on that detachable bag, where we're sewing down the flap and then we're turning it back the other way and then hitting it with a top stitch. And as you can see there, that is a finished cargo pocket, and I think that looks really nice. What you can do is add a little button or a snap fastener right there. I don't have any in at the moment, but you can do that. So the next part of the process is to do the exact same thing for the other side. So again, the top right together, and then we're just going to stitch all the way down and connect these up and then hit it with a top stitch after. So when you're doing the other side, so you've just basically, you know, done one side where the whole sort of thing is open, and now you've just sewn this seam down, top stitched it, and you're putting the cargo pocket in the other side. It can be a bit awkward, but you've got to try and just move everything out the way, including the pocket bag. So it is a bit of a tricky thing to do because we're doing this cargo pocket over the actual side seam of the garment. But you'll get it. It's all just about being patient with the machine, you know. As you can see, now we've got to the point where the cargo pockets have been input onto the side. The front pockets are functional. You know, we got our fly zip that we created at the beginning. And then if you flip it over, we've got the back pockets that function. So we kind of just want to finish out this top piece. And the way we're going to do that is we first are going to tackle the waistband right there. The waistband that we've made for this pattern, me and my co-designer Gio, it actually curves, and the reason it curves is because the pattern itself slightly curves at the top. So we basically just want to account for that. If you fold it over, you can see that it matches and it fits and the size makes sense. You can see that for the inside of the zip, you're going to go in a little bit further, and for that side you are too. But if it does overlap slightly when you do it, you can just account this before by just making sure you run it around and making sure, yeah, it should fit perfectly. If it does slightly go over, which, you know, we're gonna have to go over that zip cover right there. I can imagine we have a tiny little bit of excess. Now you can account for that now and cut that off, but if you do it now, then you won't be able to go back later. So what I do recommend is that you start building it out. If you do need to make changes to the end of the waistband, then I recommend we do that a little bit later down the process. We can always trim when we get to it. How are you going to do this? So to do a waistband, it is very, very simple. It is a very simple process. What we're going to do is we're going to focus directly on the waistband right now, and we can sort of put this front piece to the side. How we're going to do this is I'll show you with one little corner. Basically, we can take the bottom pin out, and what we're going to do is we're going to sew this around. We're not going to sew any of the bottom piece because we'll get to that in a minute. But what you want to do is you want to fold up one of the sides about a ½ inch, and then we're going to start the stitch. We're going to go up over this piece, and then we're going to follow all the way along the top. The top is the piece that curves inwards, not the bottom piece which curves outwards. You need to follow the same curve as the top of the skirt. So we're going to sew up this and then sew all the way around the top, and then when we go to sew down the other side, you're just going to do the exact same thing. So in reverse, it would be sewing along and then sewing down, making sure you've curved a ½ inch over, and then just finish it off, and then I'll tell you how we're going to attach this after. Once again, when we get to the end, we're just going to fold up that by a half inch, just like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to trim them little corners as we do with all the things that we're turning inside out. Again, pinch and roll, we're going to do that all the way around. We're just going to throw a pin because we're going to top stitch around this, and then we're going to attach it to the main top of the skirt. So I'm just finishing up this top stitch right here, and as you can see, the fabric is starting to fold a certain way on one side. This is going to be the side that goes on the front of our garment, because it's going to naturally fold over. This raw edge is going to be the side that we're going to actually stitch to the front facing of our garment. So when it all naturally folds over, you'll see how it works. But at the moment, I'm just top stitching all the way around. I'm going to do something a little bit interesting here. Basically, you can see that I've lined up exactly how much waistband I'm going to need. And it does seem to be a little bit longer, so you can feel free to cut this, undo a little bit of the top stitching right here, then you can fold it all back in so it's perfect. But I have this right here. It is a piece of hardware that I have actually been trying to find, and I finally found it. I went to a fabric hardware shop in London, and I was on the way to Egypt, the last trip that I just did, and I finally found it. It's like a little bag clasp, but I've actually been trying to find it for a long time. And it doesn't look like much, but when it's placed in the right place on a piece of clothing, I think it will look really nice. So I'm actually just going to place that right there, because for me, this is going to overlap a little bit. This waistband is going to overlap a little bit on the garment. So I'm going to place that right there so it closes it up nicely. Put some rivets in it, and it should look really nice. But for now, we can move that to the side. I don't need to worry about it. I just kind of wanted to show you what I'm going to do. You can also, if you have clasps and stuff like that, you can leave the waistband so it is a little bit bigger or sort of overlaps a little bit more, and then you can do the same kind of thing if you have like lobster clasps, fireman clasps, or anything like that. Let me show you how to attach this waistband. What you're going to do is we are basically going to undo the zipper a little bit. We're going to start from this side. So if I can just move that out of the way, we're basically going to start from the side where you have the zip cover. And this is because when we go around the whole thing, then we can sort of make sure that the overlapping works on top. So what you're going to do with the side that has a raw edge, we're just going to line that up right to the end, front facing. What this is going to do is this is going to fold over, and then once it's folded over, then we can fold this other side of the waistband onto the other side. I'll show you all that later, but for now we're just going to focus on stitching this all the way around. So I'm going to be sewing from the inside just because I like my fabric to be on the left of my sewing foot, and I'm going to basically just stitch this waistband in. I'm going to try and get my stitch as a 1/4 seam allowance, so it is actually going to be quite close to this fold, but I'm just going to make my way all the way around the skirt and just sew front facing the raw edge to the front facing of the fabric. I'm using a plastic zipper which I needed to trim down too, but I'm going to trim it down afterwards, and I know I can sew over it because it's plastic. So yeah, let me get to work. So again, once we're sewing this, we want to make sure that we're moving the underneath bit that we're not stitching down out the way, just so we can get a nice clear stitch all the way through. And again, I'm using my 1/4 seam allowance. So you can stitch right over that zip because it is plastic also. So what we have done is we have just sewn the front facing of the waistband to the main panel of our top skirt. And now from the inside, what I am just doing is I'm folding over, and I'm basically just building the waistband from the inside. So I'm just folding over the bit that we actually folded over when we went to stitch at the beginning, and I am just folding it so it sits right on top of the stitch mark that we just did. And when you throw a pin in that right now, you can see that the other side, it sits perfectly. So when we top stitch all the way around this from the inside now, it should leave a perfect top stitch on the outside too. This is quite a small waistband. It's not meant to be a huge one, the same as like the Keystone Denims one was. It's just meant to be a small sort of waistband just to fit the sort of, you know, just to match the skirt, just like that. So I'm going to do this, time lapse it, and then I will touch basis, but just make sure that when you're doing this, you're pulling the waistband so it's got enough, because you don't want it to be sort of like hanging down the back like that. You kind of want it to make sure that it's nice and tight, and then when you're folding over, you're folding, but you're placing that fold right on top of where you've just done that stitch mark. And then when you place the pin inside, then you'll know that it matches up perfectly. Remember, this is a curved waistband. Yeah, if it looks curved, it's probably nothing weird going on. So now I'm just stitching all along this, and just take it really slow and really easy. You can keep flicking it to the other side just to check that all the stitching is in the right area, which it looks like it is there. We're just going to take it super slow and stitch around, take the pins out, and this should secure your waistband on. So we're now at the part of the stage where we've just input the waistband, and I think it looks really, really, really nice. One thing that I could recommend that we did do a little bit different than the way I would normally do it is, instead of sewing the front facing to the front facing waistband to the actual main skirt, I would do it front facing but on the back, so the inside of the skirt. The main reason I would say that is so the fold sort of thing that we were doing just over there on the machine and then stitching on the inside would be on the outside. So you're actually stitching and folding it on the outside. That is just because it cleans up the stitch, and if there is any sort of like misalignment, or you sort of sew and it goes under or over the sort of other side of the waistband, if that makes sense, then it would be on the inside and not on the outside. Whereas now I've got this printed fabric, so it doesn't make too much of a difference, but as you can see, sometimes there is a little bit of stitching that goes up or down. So basically, instead of sewing on the inside and folding in that way, you're just doing it the opposite way round, so then you're folding the outside inwards. But other than that, this is kind of what we're working with at the moment, and I think it looks so clean. I just attached the little detachable bag with these pins. I'm actually going to popper them on when I get some poppers. I did order some new poppers, I remember I did, for the next pattern that we've got coming out, which is going to be incredible. But for now, I'm just going to add pins and sort of hang it there. What we're going to do now is there's a few things we're going to wait and sort of do after, as I just said, the poppers and connecting that little piece of hardware that I just showed you to the waistband. I will do at the end, because I don't really need to show you how to input rivets and stuff in this tutorial. So now what I'm going to do is, I've just measured out, if this zip goes all the way to the side seam and it goes along, then we probably want it to sit a little bit further than that side seam over there, so there's a little bit of a gap. And the same with the other side. So I'm just with a Sharpie going to mark that right there. I'm literally just going to mark where I'm going to cut the zip on both sides, and then I'm going to do the same for the other side. If you've got one continuous zip and it's 50 inches, or say 49, 50 inches, then you can pretty much just wrap it all the way around to gauge that it works, and then when you're zipping off, obviously it's one motion all the way around. As I mentioned, I'm doing this with 2 zippers, but I'm going to do one so it goes that way, and then the other one will be starting, so the zip would come from this way and go that way. That is just so I can zip it off and then carry that momentum round and zip the other one off. So it's basically in the same one motion, but it's just 2 zippers. So I'm going to trim this zip down, and I'm actually going to move these little, you know, the zip end sort of like locks. I'm going to cut all of these teeth and move it down a little bit. I'm not going to show you how to do that, there is tutorials online, but you can trim a zipper to the perfect sort of, you know, length. And the way we're going to input this is we're basically going to get these 2 panels here, which is the front zipper shield and the back zipper shield, and we're basically going to pretty much
the exact same pattern piece. Now one would go on the front, the other would go on the back. We have a little bit of excess there to allow for the fact we're going to have seam allowance. And we're basically going to put these together, and we're basically going to sew the zippers in and the shields at the same time, if that makes sense. And we're going to do this all in one motion. So we're going to grab the right side of the zip, sew it in, and it's all going to be one stitch, and then we're going to top stitch it all down in the end. And then after that, we're going to do the exact same thing without a shield on the other two panels. And then after that, we'll get to the cord locks on the bottom. So if that kind of confused you a little bit, don't worry. Just make sure that you focus on prioritizing trimming this zip so that maybe it is a 1/2 inch on each side away from the side seam on your top skirt. And then do the exact same thing for your other zip on the back, unless, like I said, you have one continuous zip that goes all the way around, and then we will touch bases. I've just trimmed these two zips. This one is the front and this one is the back, and as I said, you'll be able to do it so you zip one off and then it will kind of detach that front piece, and then you zip the other one off going around the same motion. It might actually be cool to do it one side and the other, so you can do it on the same sort of time, but I guess you'll be able to do that anyway. Anyway, just some thoughts. Basically, the way we're going to attach this, I'm just going to unpin this detachable bag for now. We can put it over here and attach it later. The way we are going to attach these zips and this shield is that you can see the width of these are exactly the same, the front and the back, and they perfectly line up. And once seam allowance is added to these and sewn together and folded and put together, then you can see that this shield is going to run all the way around. And we're basically going to fold them because it will look something similar to this, and then that will be just the cover right there, and then the zip's going to be underneath that. But the way that we're going to attach the zip, because it's an open end zip, we can actually detach the zip itself and just sew one of the pieces of the zipper, if I can get it off, to the top, and then we can sew the other zipper to the bottom half, which is over there, but we'll get to that later. So that's basically just the grand explanation, the short story, and now let's do it together. So first off, I'm going to sew these two pieces together front facing on the side. So we're just going to sew down here, 1/4 seam allowance, and just do the same with the other side. And this is going to connect these two panels. Then I'll show you what to do. So now you can see that matches up perfectly. Now this is our zip cover, but as I mentioned, we're going to be folding this in half. So now is where you want to get your iron out again, and we're actually going to iron this in half and make sure it's exactly matches up all the way around. The reason we're doing this when they're together and not separately is because we can actually just make this seam fold over too, so it all looks like one piece of fabric. I'm just going to throw a pin in this area here. Same with the other side. So now what we want to do is we want to grab our iron, and I've just pinned a few pins in here just to hold it secure, and we'll slowly work our way around this and hit it with an iron so these two raw edges line up flush. So now once I've hit this with an iron, I'm actually going to do a really close seam allowance stitch all the way around this, just to sandwich these two pieces together. What you can do is you can hit this with an overlock if you want to, but I don't have my overlocker and I cannot be bothered to go and get the other machine out. So I'm just going to do a really close seam allowance stitch all the way around just to shut these two fold pieces together so it makes one piece. And right now I've just fully stitched a little seam allowance around that, so it's a little strip now. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn this inside out so the fold is facing upwards. The skirt is actually inside the band. It should look something a little bit like this. What I've done is I've also matched up the side seam with the connection seams of the two front and back zip cover. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to throw some pins to match up these seams. So the side seam with the side seam, and then the same on the other side. And then we're just going to stretch it. You shouldn't have to stretch it too much if you've done the right seam allowance. And it should all connect up perfectly, and then we're going to run pins all the way around it. What we're doing now is I'm going to unzip the front zipper that I have just trimmed down, and I'm going to take the side which doesn't have the zipper on, so this one right here, and with the front facings we're going to point the teeth upwards, and I'm going to basically pay attention to the fact that it is about a ½ inch away from the side seam, so around like this sort of area here, and I'm going to pin it down. The reason the teeth are facing upwards is because when this folds back round and over, we're going to top stitch that little area here down, and that should make the zip function. The reason it is a ½ inch from the side seam is because we know that we've cut the zip to size, so then it should be a ½ inch the other side too. I'm going to slowly make my way along here. So remember, we're going to pin the zip shield down, and we're matching up the side seams, and then we are just adding our zipper, but the side where it doesn't have the actual puller on it, and then we're basically going to pin that all the way round, and then we're going to pin the other side obviously to the bottom. Just a little note to you if you're using 2 zips, I just thought I'd mention this. You want to make sure that the bottom of the zipper right there goes onto the top of the other zipper. That is just going to create our effect, or not effect, but mean that we can follow all the way around the skirt. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stitch all the way around this with a zipper foot, and then when I go to top stitching it, I'll switch it to the other side of my foot, because my sewing foot has zipper foot on one side and then normal on the other. So I can kind of just do this with zipper foot, switch it round, and hit the top stitch with a nice foot. And that should then secure these 2 zips in place, and that basically just means we're a step closer to finishing the skirt. If you have gone and got the 50-inch zipper, then you're just doing the same thing. You're taking off one side of the zipper, the part where it doesn't have the puller, and then you're pretty much just stitching it all around the same as I am now. As you can see, there is loads of loose threads on my piece of clothing. I would normally overlock this, but I'm not. So yeah, I'm leaving that for now. I'm going to stitch all around it, and then we will try and tackle the bottom of the skirt. It is 1 p.m, 1:07 right here. So I'm going to try and finish all that I can tonight. I'm going to go until like 2:30 and then leave the studio, come back tomorrow. Kind of a late night for me, but yeah, so I'm going to finish what I can, and then we will try and do some hardware bits tomorrow. I might end off the video tonight if we get to the end where we've kind of finished it, and then we will go on to tomorrow, and I'll sort of find someone to model it, and then we'll go from there. Let's do it. Now you have stitched with your zipper foot the 2, or if you're smart, the 1 zipper into the actual skirt itself. And now we're going to run a top stitch all along the top, making sure that we're folding it in the skirt itself. So making sure we're folding the zipper in the skirt. And when you hit this top stitch, the zipper will still be able to be functional. So we're just going to top stitch this all the way around. So we're really getting there now. It's getting a little bit late in the studio, but pretty much I've just basically put the other side of the zip on, as you can see, and it's looking really nice. The whole top piece is completely finished now. The only things that we would do is add the detachable buttons for the detachable bag right here, and then obviously I need to do my hardware for the waistband. But yeah, pretty much we're at the stage where we can now attach the bottom sort of pieces. So we're going to get the bottom front right, the bottom front left, so the two pieces where we did the flat felt seam down, and we're also going to grab the back piece and we're going to put them together front facings, and we're going to stitch the two side seams together, hit it with a top stitch, making sure the top stitch is running the same direction as we did here, where the top stitch is facing inwards, the fold. And yeah, let me just show you that in POV. I have just sewn together the side seams and I've top stitched them, and they look really nice. I've just kind of connected this up right here, and you can see the dragon all matches up. The pockets are all functional. I'm really liking the look of this. I think I'm going to try and finish it tonight, boost it out and just go for it. And then tomorrow I want to add in some of like the dead spaces. I'm going to put a few little like Japanese patches, and I have this right here, this big cargo pocket that I decided to do earlier when I was doing the cargo pockets. I'm actually going to put this just probably around that sort of area there, and then when the bag is connected, the detachable bag too, I'm sort of giving you a little visual representation right now of it finished. I kind of didn't want to cover the dragon face, so maybe this goes this side and then that goes the other. Oh, this is looking so good. And then obviously this cinches. Something that I didn't show you earlier was that I did order in the perfect 3mm paracord, and it's the perfect sort of blue. And then somewhere in this studio I always lose them, and then right here I have a really nice see-through sort of popper, sort of cord stopper, cord lock sort of thing. Visually this is looking amazing right now, and to be honest I could stop here and fresh brain start it tomorrow, but all I've really got to do is attach this zipper to this side and then hit it with a top stitch. So I'm gonna get that finished tonight, and then I'm gonna do the paracord and cinching tomorrow, but probably gonna put the pocket on tonight and then maybe just do all the hardware bits tomorrow, but at least get it to the stage where we can do the cinching tomorrow, mainly because I do have eyelets, but I can't smash them in at this time of night just because it's too late to start hammering down on my table, you know. So anyway, I'm going to show you now how to do the attachment of the bottom piece to the zip, and then from there we will touch bases tomorrow, finish it, and then I'll find someone to model it too, so you know, because I don't wear skirts. But yeah, we'll get it modeled tomorrow and then it'll be finished. But I am loving the look of this. I think it looks amazing. So what we're going to do here is we're going to line up this center seam all the way down, and once that center seam is lined up you can kind of see that the image lines up as well. Basically we want to undo one of the zips and do it really carefully when it's all lined up, make sure it's not going out of place, and I'm basically just going to fold this zip over just like that. And I'm going to grab some pins, I'm going to pin it in place. We can double check this before sewing, so this might seem like a bit of a rogue way to do it, but I think this should work perfectly. And we're basically folding that over, and just because you've basically grabbed it and folded it over so the teeth are facing down, once this is the right way, then obviously that zip will connect up right there. What we're going to do is we're going to slightly rotate this, and the same with that, just so we can match up that side seam there and match up where that zip starts. And we're going to slowly do the same with the other zip, so we're going to undo it, and then we're going to just line it up the same distance as the one right there. And then we're just going to pin. And now what we can do is we can actually undo the rest of the zipper. This is quite an intricate part, but I think with patience it is all good. We can sort of switch to the back now and work our way along with pins. Again, I'm going to hit this with the zipper foot, and then we'll go from there. Let's do it. Now with this one, you might have to move the head of the zipper around a little bit, but I'm going to start from the exact same place as we did before, and I'm just going to stitch over this gap and then make my way all the way around with the zipper foot. Wow. You just saw me zip that on, and that was the most satisfying thing ever. I'm just sitting here looking at it because it's actually sick. And the thing is, I don't really make much women's wear. I know this is still like very streetwear sort of vibes, baggy, cinched look, draping. But it's still very, very different from me. A lot of the things in this studio are very menswear inspired, jackets and bombers and workwear-esque stuff. So making something like this and it actually function and look really good, I'm very proud of it, and I'm so excited to see what you guys create with it. We've got a few more steps of the process, and then hopefully you guys have the finished product at the same time as I do. But pretty much, I'm going to put the pocket on, and I might put a few patches on, and then I'll leave the cinching for tomorrow, just because of the hammering and the noise. But we're pretty much finished. We just got to do the cinching. I'm going to do my little finishing touches and the details. But the midsection zip worked really, really well. Every part of the process has gone like pretty perfectly, which is super nice. So yeah, let me just do them details. I'll just film the camera being around the studio. You'll see me doing them, and then I'm going to pack up, go home, come here tomorrow morning and get straight cracking on with it. So yeah, let's do it. And here we go. This is the last day of construction on this skirt. Well, probably like the last hour, to be fair, because the only thing we've got to do, as you can see, I was just sewing on all of the different patches. I added this big cargo pocket to the lower sort of panel of the skirt. I re-zipped it up and
repinned the detachable bag so you're able to look at it with me right now. But I'm absolutely loving this skirt. I think it's really cool. It's very interesting to make something that I wouldn't usually make. All we've got left is pretty much the cinching mechanism, and that's banging in the sort of like eyelets that I said I couldn't really do last night because of noise. So I only have to input 2, and then it's just manipulating the cord and just doing it that way. So I'm going to need my iron for this. You're probably going to need it too. I'm just going to basically iron in a 1/2 inch on the bottom. I've kind of pinned it to showcase it at the bottom. Make sure your seams are open so they're not bulking in fabric, and we're basically just going to iron all the way around the bottom of our skirt 1/2 inch, and then that is basically what we're going to fold over again, and then that will sew so it makes a nice clean sort of edge and we don't have a frayed edge on the bottom of the skirt. And then we're going to input the eyelets, and then I'll show you how to input the cord stopper and the toggle system. But yeah, let's go. So for this part of the process, even though I just zipped it back on, you're probably going to want to unzip the bottom bit, and we'll work just on less fabric, because if you do it whilst your skirt is all together, then it might be quite tricky with the eyelets, and just, you know, it gives you less fabric to work with. We can move this to the side for now, and we're going to be focusing on this bit down here. So this is the bottom of the skirt right here, and as I mentioned, we're going to get our iron and make sure we do a 1/2 inch sort of fold all the way round. What we're going to then do is we're going to fold over quite a little bit, just enough so, you know, you can make that sort of cinch channel at the bottom. And then the eyelets are going to go right here, one on the left side of the flat felled seam and the other on the right. One on the left side of the flat felled seam and the other on the right. And I thought to myself this morning, a cool little idea, how possible this is going to be. But I have these right here, which are the little stoppers that I'm going to put on the end of the paracord. And basically what I was thinking was this. Essentially the 2 eyelets are going to go here, one this side and one this side. They're going to have the paracord running through, and then they're going to have this cord lock right here attached to both pieces of paracord, so you're able to tighten it. And then after that there'll be excess paracord, and then this will be attached to it. The reason this is attached to it, and you can use something like a bead or something that wouldn't go through the cord lock itself. The reason this is attached to it, and the reason you would use a bead, is so you can pull it through and then it stops, so it doesn't all come undone. But this, for example, could potentially like drag on the floor. The same with your paracord. It depends kind of how long you've made your skirt, how long your legs are, all of that sort of thing. But there's a sort of a chance that when you pull it sort of kind of tight, the paracord, the cord lock and this bead kind of thing is going to drag on the floor. So I was thinking up here in this sort of region, adding a bigger eyelet, so then this can sort of like push through and then sort of you know, sit the other side of the fabric. And this just means that it would sort of hold up all of the paracord, and the cord lock and the bead would sort of be in place up here. So I'm going to mess around with that idea. You can also do this on the inside. A lot of people put their, like, you know, their eyelets on the inside of the fabric in here rather than outside, just so they can hide it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to input the eyelets. I'm kind of going to fold it over and then mark them with a Sharpie and then bang them in, make sure they're big enough for my paracord, and then yeah, we'll go from there. Kind of makes sense. I'm basically just adding the 2 eyelets. We've got our sort of cord channel, and then we're going to try and like make it so the bead thing at the end, because it's got 2 sort of sides to it that make it a little bit longer horizontally, they're just going to lock into another eyelet or potentially another piece of fabric, because I might be able to, you know, if you don't have a bigger eyelet, you might be able to just run a little bit of fabric out here that this can sort of like catch onto. It just helps with quality of life sort of features of the skirt. It's not too important, but we can mess around with that when we get there. I'm going to get my iron out. I'm going to iron that 1/2 inch sort of fold, and then we'll make our markings for our paracord and get sort of going with that. And what we're doing now is we are just folding it over once more. So you've got that fold that you've just done, and we're just folding it over once more. But this one's going to be a little bit longer. You've got to take into account that the paracord is going to run through this. I'll just grab some paracord. I'm not too sure whether I'm using this one or this one yet. These are both really, really nice from the same sort of supplier. This one's nice. It just feels kind of a little bit too shiny and like sort of, I don't know, kind of comical. I don't know how to describe it. I don't really like too much block sort of colours in my piece of clothing, so I'm not sure if I'm going to use this one, but maybe this one.
You've kind of just got to allow a little bit of space so it's free enough to just like cinch up, because if you really did a small sort of one, then all the fabric's going to kind of bunch and then it's not going to work on the seams and stuff. So we kind of want to add like another inch fold over. I actually accounted this with my patches and just made sure to do them a little bit further up because I knew I was going to fold over. So the first fold, let's do a 1/2 inch, and then the second fold we're working with kind of like another inch on top of that. And I'm just throwing pins in this whilst I'm doing it. The reason I'm doing so is just so it holds it in place, so then when we go to do the eyelets, we can kind of take the pins out of the place where we need to input the eyelets. Then when we go doing the paracord, we can kind of just put it in and remove the pins rather than stitching it down and then having to unstitch, or doing it without pins, you know, it just makes it a little bit easier. I'm now just going to grab a Sharpie and I'm just going to mark the eyelets. You can kind of do this with chalk or something else, but I'm kind of pretty sure I know where I want my eyelets. I'm going to have them right here and here, so I'm just going to do left and right. I can do this by eye just because it's quite easy to do so. So I've got one there, one there. I'm not actually going to show you how to input eyelets. I'll film the process of me doing it, but it's not something that I'm going to teach you in this video. You can find out how to do that on another YouTube video, and you could just buy a set off like a very local fabric store. It will do the job perfectly. I did have a rivet press over on the corner of the table, but I basically just snapped it in half, so it doesn't work anymore. I'm gonna have to hammer these in, and then I think I'm gonna do the other bits of hardware whilst, maybe I'll leave that for later. So anyway, I'll just hammer the eyelets in. If you're interested in learning how to do eyelets, then there's another video somewhere on YouTube for that. Maybe I will make a tutorial in the future. Right, so what are we doing now? So essentially we've got the two eyelets installed and we've got our paracord. We basically want to unroll enough paracord so it goes around the whole skirt. I'd say we want to cut a little bit extra just to be safe. Say around that, and then we can cut some off later. And the one thing you're going to need is a lighter. We're just going to burn the ends of this paracord and then pinch it in just so there's no fraying on the edge. Same with the other side. You can kind of cut that if it's a bit too much fraying going on. So now we have our long piece of paracord right here. We have our bead stopper and our cord lock. What we're going to do is we're going to input the bead into one side and just drag it all the way down to the end, and then we are going to input the cord lock into both of the pieces of paracord, just like that. Thread them through and pull it all the way down. This is going to be what we tighten, and again the bead is just there to stop the cord locker coming off the paracord. Now what we want to do is we want to thread one side through one eyelet and the other side through the other. Make sure that we pull it, and you can kind of see that this is what we're now working with. And if you sort of flip this the other way, you can see that this is what your sort of cord is going to look like. I'm going to pull it right to the end and pull it just there, because when it's sort of extended at its like furthest point and you haven't cinched in this skirt, then we kind of don't want too much paracord hanging down. Kind of the less the better, you know. Something like that. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to run this paracord underneath, and then we can repin this back in place and work our way along on both sides equally, and just work our way around this cinch channel right here. And you can see that we'll slowly get to the edge, and then you should be left with two pieces at the end like that. And then we're going to tie them together, hit it with a bit of a stitch, and then cut the excess, and that will stay in place. And then this cord lock will be functional once we've sewn around the whole of where we've pinned.
So once you've made your way all around the inside of the channel with your paracord, there's a few ways to do this. One way that I used to do it was I used to run them sort of, if I take these two pins out, you'll see, I used to run these two sort of paracord pieces parallel and then run loads of back and forth stitches on it, and then that kind of just means I can cut the excess and then it stays secure. Because the main thing is we want to just make sure that this, you know, toggle system works and it doesn't just pull through the two, you know, sides obviously. But what I'm going to do is I can put one of the pins back in there. I'm actually just going to tie this and do a double knot and then just heat it up with a lighter after. So just do one there and then another double knot there. Pull that a little bit tighter. And there's not going to be a lot of sort of pressure on this knot. So I'm just going to leave it with that double knot there. It's very secure. I'm going to cut off the edges, the excess. Then we're just going to light that up to mold it together. Then what we can do is we can just tuck that into the actual cinch channel itself, and I can pin that back up. And then we're just going to run a stitch all the way around following this edge. And then we pretty much just installed our cinch channel. Now you can measure this, how far in you want to stitch, and then do it the other side so the bobbin thread is not on the good side, but I'm just not going to do that. But I'm using these guides on my machine to make sure my stitch stays very clean all the way around so it looks super nice. So now we have finished sewing all the way around this. You can see the cinch channel is now working, but there is one little thing that we can do. Where you have done the knot, you can kind of feel it. What I'm going to do right at the back is next to the knot on one side and the other, I'm just going to do a little back and forth like sort of tack on the paracord itself, just to double secure it in case that knot naturally comes undone. You can just move the paracord in the middle and just hit it with a double back and forth stitch with your machine, and this just keeps it in place. Just like that. I think we're finished with everything. Now just like that, we are finished with the cinching mechanism, and as you can see there, you kind of, I've done it with some heavy fabric, this cotton, and there we are. There you can see the bottom of the skirt cinches, and now you can see where this would kind of drag on the floor. So I'm just going to see if there is any way that I can make a little sort of bigger eyelet that this can sort of sit in. Let me check my tools. I did find an eyelet, but as you can see, it's just kind of a little bit too small for the bead to go into. I don't really want to go cutting the fabric because we're pretty much, well, we are finished now. I think I'm just going to leave it at that. I might try and figure that out at a later date. So all there is for me to do now is to finish off the hardware on the waist and then add my rivets in the desired places that I want them. And then I'm completely finished. And then obviously do the little buttons on the detachable pocket, but I don't actually have them yet. So yeah. So what I have got right here is some aluminium rivets. They are just the burr-on stud ones. So I've got my little anvil, my little like peen hammer, and then over here I have a little setter which has the little sort of curved bit in the bottom. I'm going to put a few of these on. These aren't the strongest ones, the aluminium ones. The brass and the, I think, nickel ones are a little bit stronger, but this isn't like a workwear piece, so it doesn't really matter if they're not too strong. I'm going to put some on the back pockets, and then I'm going to put 2 on the big cargo pocket, and then I think I'm going to call it quits there. And then obviously I need to do the waistband. just like that, I think we're about done with the project. I am going to add the rivets and that sort of clasp kind of thing to the waistband off camera because my rivet press broken, like I said earlier in the video, so it'd be kind of harder for me to put in rivets and stuff like that, so I'm going to leave that for off camera. However, I think we're about done and I am really happy with this. I never really make women's wear, so designing this pattern with Geo was just such like a fun little experience, and I kind of held this pattern off for a little bit. I didn't release it for like a little period of time because I was kind of unsure of how it was going to go when I made it, but now I've constructed it, it's more than perfect. I'm super happy. The cargo pockets look amazing. That sort of zip off midsection looks amazing too. I'm very happy with that. The patches just do the image on the main sort of piece of clothing so much justice. The cinching mechanism and that sort of deep navy blue matches the deep navy blue in other parts of the skirt too. The fly zipper was really easy to do and very fun to sort of just show you guys how to do it with, instead of having that sort of curve, normal sort of curve underneath the fly that you would have on a pair of jeans. So it's kind of fun showing you how to do it with a skirt. And yeah, I love the back pockets. The cinching just really adds to it. It makes the pattern a little bit more sort of baggy and sort of flowy in the design itself. And yeah, I really hope you guys got quite a lot of knowledge from this. I hope you guys have gone and made your own one. The pattern is in the description for $15.95. You can go and purchase that and make your own version. Follow along with this tutorial and hopefully at the end you'll have your own version of the atrium long utility skirt. Yeah, the detachable bag is optional and pretty much all the sort of pockets and patches and stuff like that, it's kind of optional what sort of materials and, you know, whether you want to add certain things and how you want to build stuff. But that is what these sewing patterns are all about, and that is exactly the reason I've started to create this massive catalogue on the website. There are so many different patterns out there now on the website, and yeah, I couldn't be more happy than the way it's going. Your guys' support is really helping me support myself, and me and Geo are able to push more patterns out. Yeah, I'm very excited for the future. The rest of this year we have so many different patterns coming out, genuinely like potentially one a week when we get into the flow of things. But I don't want to drop a load of rubbish, so if one pattern takes a little bit longer than another, then it's because I'm focusing on it a little bit more than another pattern. There's going to be some free patterns this year. There's going to be some buffer patterns like this one, where it's not a full modular sewing course with different directions. And then there's going to be them more, you know, huge modular courses like the Keystone Denims, different bomber jackets. There's a workwear bundle set coming soon, so keep that in your mind. But anyway, I won't keep you for any longer. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I really hope you guys got some value from this and were able to create the skirt. Whether you're like me and you're creating it and you're not going to wear it yourself and probably gift it or potentially sell it, then that is amazing, or you're building it for yourself. Anyway, catch you in the next video. Thank you for watching. See you in a bit.